Hello everyone, my name is Josie Pemlott and this is my presentation on educating the exceptional student. The first exceptionality that I decided to go over was learning difficulties. The characteristics for learning difficulties include socially, these students tend to experience more symptoms of depression than students without learning difficulties. Also, about 3/4 of these students also can experience higher levels of anxiety. And they can sometimes tend to have more emotional difficulties, such as acting out behavior, than their typical peers. Cognitive or intellectual characteristics is that they have difficulty with their memory. Their short-term memory, their long-term memory, and even their working memory suffers. Recalling information shortly after it's been presented is difficult, as well as storing that information to be recalled at a later time. Because of their problems with their working memory, students with learning difficulties tend to have a difficult time in step-by-step areas of learning, such as math. The universal design for learning or differentiated instruction for this exceptionality is that using these effective instructional ideas such as differential instruction is vitally important. There are many ways to accommodate students with learning difficulties. Limiting the number of math problems they have to do or the number of spelling words that they have to review for is a great example. Also allowing extra time to take a test and maybe possibly letting them do an oral report as opposed to a written one would be highly beneficial. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is my next exceptionality. Characteristics for this include socially, ADHD is one major issue with students with ADHD that they have in common is that they have a difficult time regulating their emotions. They can experience peer rejection due to their ever-changing moods. They may have trouble engaging in conversation or even using appropriate gestures. Cognitive characteristics is, while ADHD is not normally classified as a cognitive condition, and students that have ADHD, they are just as likely to be identified as gifted as any other student. However, they do tend to have, as a group, lower vocabulary development, and there are some challenges to their working memory. That is a problem when it comes to certain subjects, such as reading. Academic. The majority of students with ADHD have typical intelligence. However, they do frequently have problems achieving in an academic setting. When compared with other students with ADHD tend to have lower GPAs and higher rates of being held back in a grade. And this may be due to, the fact that they have an inability to stay on task or stay focused. Universal design for learning for ADHD. The most effective strategy for students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder involve multimodal treatments. This involves using multiple interventions across different modes or types of therapies, such as behavioral, medical, or even psychological. Using errorless learning, which minimizes the mistakes that students make when they learn a new task, is hugely beneficial. To promote outcomes such as goal setting and self-management, the use of video self-modeling is helpful, and it has been proven to be highly effective. Autism, or autism spectrum disorder. Social characteristics. Students with autism have difficulty establishing relationships and maintaining them. They have a tendency to not respond to many of the forms of communication that so many of us take for granted. For example, they don't know how to understand facial expressions, and some of them have trouble with eye contact. They are sometimes unable to understand and express their needs or possibly the needs of others, and they can appear distant. Cognitive characteristics are some students with autism have a deficit in language. Their facial expressions and body language are sometimes delayed, especially in the latter part of their first year. And therefore, it may remain different or unconventional throughout their development. Students with ASD may have a limited understanding of certain things, such as, like I said before, eye contact, cooperative playing, or even understand the norms of conversation. Academic. Many students with autism are visual learners. It takes them a little longer to process things, especially like things that they have seen. So it's important to give them that extra time. Students with ASD also tend to be tactile learners. They prefer a hands-on style of learning. Universal design for learning. Effective strategies such as social stories are a great way to show students with ASD how to have social interaction skills. Positive behavior support has been shown to decrease problem behavior, and having a familiar person with them, giving them their tests or even their daily work is highly beneficial. I know that we had a student, we've had a couple students with autism at the school that I work at, and we always try to keep the same person with them at all times. It just makes them feel comfortable, and it really helps in what they're learning and how they learn it. Traumatic brain injury. Social characteristics with traumatic brain injury is that these students may have rapid fluctuations in their emotions. This may include mood swings, overreactions, aggressiveness, inappropriate reactions, errors in judgment, impulsive. They may have crying episodes. So it may even have difficulty maintaining relationships. Cognitive characteristics are that they have a decreased attention span. Their organizational skills and their problem-solving abilities may also decrease. Their memory is obviously affected. Academic. Students with TBI are often associated with students with learning difficulties. So a lot of the characteristics that you see with students with learning difficulties, you'll see in a student that has a traumatic brain injury, such as, having difficulty, with reading. The universal design for learning for a traumatic brain injury is there's several ways that you can help a student in a classroom. One way would be to provide repetition, just telling them over and over what they need to do. Also consistency. Keeping everything the same is very helpful. Giving them more time to complete an assignment is a great way to help these students. Giving directions one step at a time is helpful. Showing the student how to perform the task or a new task that they have to learn and giving them examples helps the student with a traumatic brain injury. Gifted and talented. Characteristics for gifted and talented are that socially, students that are identified as gifted tend to experience lower levels of anxiety and depression. Although that can change as they get older, they may feel more pressure than normal student or than typical students. Cognitive issues is being gifted has often been associated with having high general intellect. They have superior functioning when it comes to memory, concentration, abstraction, and generalization, and their reasoning is also great. Academic characteristics is that students that are gifted have a higher tendency to become perfectionists. They also have a tendency to become bored in class a lot easier than their typical peers. A universal design for learning for gifted and talented is one strategy is to use the school enrichment model. This ensures that students that are gifted are able to be educated in a general classroom. This last slide is a personal one for me. Every Child Deserves a Champion by Rita Pierson. This was a TED Talk that I was very privileged to be able to listen to. One of the most important things that I learned throughout this class was that no matter what, every child matters. Rita Pierson said it best. Every child deserves a champion. We as educators, we're born to make a difference. Thank you.